Book of the Thousand Nights and the Night Section 1. In the name of Allah, the Compassionating, the Compassionate. Praise be to Allah, the Beneficial King, the Creator of the universe, Lord of the three worlds, who set up the firmament without pillars in its stead, and who stretched out the earth even as a bed, and grace and prayer, blessings be upon our Lord Muhammad, Lord of apostolic men, and upon his family and companions, blessings, enduring, and grace, which unto the day of doom shall remain. Amen. O thou of the three worlds sovereign, and afterwards, thoroughly the works and words of those gone before us have become instances and examples to men of our modern day, that folk may view what admonishing chances befell other folk, and may therefore take warning, and that they may peruse the annals of antique peoples, and all that has betided them, and be thereby ruled and restrained. Praise therefore be to him who has made the histories of the past an admonition unto the present. Now of such instances are the tales called A Thousand Nights and a Night, together with their far-famed legends and wonders. Therein it is related, but Allah is all-knowing of his hidden things, and all-ruling, and all-honored, and all-giving, and all-gracious, and all-merciful, that in tired of and in time long gone before, there was a king of the kings of the Banu Sassan in the islands of India and China, a lord of armies and guards and servants and dependents. He left only two sons, one in the prime of manhood and the other yet a youth, while both were knights and braves, albeit the elders a doughtier horseman than the younger. So he succeeded to the empire when he ruled the land, and lorded it over his leisure with justice so exemplary that he was beloved by all the peoples of his capital and of his kingdom. His name was King Shahryar, and he made his younger brother Shah Zaman king of Samarkand in barbarian land. These two ceased not to abide in their several realms, and the law was ever carried out in their dominions, and each ruled his own kingdom with equity and fair dealing to his subjects, in extreme solace and enjoyment, and this condition continually endured for a score of years. But at the end of the 20th 12 months, the elder king yearned for a sight of his younger brother, and felt that he must look upon him once more. So he took counsel with his wazir about visiting him, but the minister, finding the project unadvisable, recommended that a letter be written and a present be sent under his charge to the younger brother, with an invitation to visit the elder. Having accepted this advice, the king forthwith bade prepare, had some gifts, such as horses with saddles of gem-encrusted gold, Rimalukes or white slaves, beautiful handmaids, high-breasted versions, and splendid stuffs, and costly. He then wrote a letter to Shah Zaman, expressing his warm love and great wish to see him, ending with these words: we therefore hope the favor and affection of the beloved brother, that he will come to sense, stir himself, and turn his face uswards. Furthermore, we have sent our to make all ordinance for the march, and our one and only desire is to seize the air. But if thou delay or disappoint us, we shall not survive the blow, wherewith peace be upon thee. Then King Shahryar, having sealed the message and given it to the wazir, the offerings aforementioned, commanded him to shorten his skirts, and strain his strength, and make all expedition in going and returning, hearkening and obedience quite a minister, who fell to making ready without stay, and packed up his loads, and prepared all his requisites without delay. This occupied him 3 days, and on the dawn of the fourth, he took leave of his king, and over desert right away, stony waste, and pleasantly, without halting by day or by night. But whenever he entered a realm, his ruler was subject to his his suzura, where he was greeted with magnificent gifts of gold and silver and all manner of presents, fair and rare. He would carry there 3 days the term of the guest. Right. And when he left on he would be honorably escorted for a whole day's march. As soon as the wazir drew near Shah Zaman's court in Samarkand, he dispatched to report his arrival one of his high officials, who presented himself before the king, and kissing ground between his hands, delivered his message here. Upon the king commanded sundry of his grandest and lords of his realm forth and meet his brothers at the distance of a full day's journey, which they did, greeting him respectfully and wishing him all prosperity, and forming an escort and a procession. When he entered the city, he proceeded straightway to the palace, where he presented himself in the royal presence, and after kissing ground and praying for the king's health and happiness and for victory over all his enemies, he informed him that his brother was yearning to see him and prayed for the pleasure of a visit. He then delivered the letter, which Shah Zaman took from his hand and read. It contains hungry hints and delusions which required thought, but when the king had fully comprehended his import, he said, "I hear and I obey the commands of the beloved brother," adding to the wazir, "But we will not march till after the 3rd day. Hospitality he appointed for the minister, fitting quarters of the palace, and pitching tents for the troops, rations them with whatever they might require of meat, drink, and other necessaries. On the 4th day he made ready for wayfare, and gots together some to his presence, befitting his elder brother's majesty, and establishing his chief wazir viceroy of the during lands. His absence. Then he caused his tents and camels and mules to be brought forth, and encamped with her bales and loads, attendants and guards within sight of the city, in readiness to set out next morning for his brother's capital. But when the night was half spent, he besought him that he had forgotten in his palace somewhat which he should have brought with him, and so he returned privily and ended his apartment, where he found the queen, his wife, asleep on his own carpet bed, embracing with both arms of black cook, of loathsome aspect, and foul with kitchen grease and grime. When he saw this, the world waxed black before his sight, and he said, "If such case happened while I am yet within sight of the city, what will be the doings of this damned whore during my long absence at my brother's court?" So he drew his scimitar, and cutting the two in 4 pieces with a single blow, left them on the carpet, and returned presently to his camp, without letting anyone know of what had happened. That he gave orders for immediate departure, and set out at once and began his travel. But he could not help thinking over his wife's treason, and he kept ever saying to himself, "How could she do this deed by me? How could she work her own death?" Till excessive grief seized him. His color changed to yellow, his body waxed weak, and he was threatened with a dangerous malady, such an one as bring his men to die. So the wazir shortened his stages, and carried long at the watering stations, and did his best to solace the king. Now, when Shah Zaman drew near the capital of his brother, he dispatched formed couriers and messengers of glad tidings to announce his arrival, and Shahryar came forth to meet him with his viziers and emirs and lords and grandees of his realm, and saluted him, and joyed with exceeding joy, and caused the city to be decorated in his honor. When, however, the brothers met the elder, could not but see the change of complexion in the younger, and questioned him of his case. Whereto he replied, "Is caused by the travails of wayfare, and my case needs care, for I have suffered from the change of water and air. But Allah be praised for reuniting me with a brother so dear and so rare." On this wise he dissembled and kept his secret, adding, "O king of the time and caliph of the tide, only toil and moil have tinged my face yellow with bile, and has made my eyes sink deep in my head." Then the two entered the capital in all honor, and the elder brother lodged the younger in a palace overhanging the pleasure garden, and after a time Seeing his condition still unchanged, he attributed it to his separation from his country and kingdom. So he let him wind his own ways, and asked no questions of him, till one day when he again said, "Oh, my brother, I see the heart's grown weaker of body and yellower of color." "Oh," my brother replied, "I have an internal wound." Still, he would not tell him what he had witnessed in his wife. Thereupon Shahryar summons doctors and surgeons and paid them to treat his brother according to the rules of art, which they did for a whole month, but their sherbets and potions. Nor did he would dwell upon the deed of his wife. Despondency, instead of diminishing, prevailed, and leechcraft treatment utterly failed. One day his elder brother said to him, "I'm going forth to hunt, and to take my pleasure and pastime. Maybe this would lighten my heart." Shah Zaman, however, refused, saying, "Oh, my brother, my sole unit for naught of this sort, and I entreat thy favor to suffer me to tarry quietly in this place, being wholly taken up with my malady." So King Shah Zaman passed his night in the palace. And next morning, when his brother had fared forth, he removed from his room and sat him down at one of the latter's windows, overlooking the pleasure grounds, and there he abode, thinking with saddest thoughts over his wife's betrayal. And burning sighs is huge from his tortured breast. And as he continued in this case, lo, a postone of the palace, which was carefully kept private, swung open, and out of it came 20 slave girls, surrounding his brother's wife, who was wondrous, fair, a model of beauty and comeliness, and symmetry and perfect loveliness, and who paced with the grace of a gazelle, which panteth for the cooling stream. Thereupon Shah Zaman drew back from the window, but he kept the bevy in sight, aspiring from a place when he could not be aspired. They walked under the very lattice, and advanced a little way into the garden, till they came to a jetting fountain, middlemost a great basin of water. Then they stripped off their clothes, and behold, 10 of them were women concubines of the king, and the other 10 were white slaves. Then they all paired off each with each, but the queen, who was left alone, presently cried out in a loud voice, "Hear to me, O my lord, say it," and then sprang with a drop leap from one of the trees, a big slobbering blackamoor with rolling eyes, which showed the whites a truly hideous sight. He walked boldly and threw his arms around her neck, while she embraced him as warmly. Then he bussed her, and winding his legs around hers as a button loop clasps a button, he threw her and enjoyed her. Unlikewise that the other slaves with the girls, till all had satisfied their passions, and they ceased not from kissing and clipping, coupling and carousing, till they began to wane. When the Mamelukes rose from the damsels' bosoms, and the black slave dismounted from the queen's breast, the men resumed their disguises, and all, except the negroes, warmed up the tree, entered the palace, and closed the postern door as before. And now, when Shah Zaman saw this conduct of his sister-in-law, he said in himself, "By Allah, my calamity is lighter than this. My brother is a greater king among the kings than I am. Yet this infamy goeth on in his very palace, and his wife is in love with that filthiest of filthy slaves. But this only showeth that they all do it, and that there is no woman but who cuckoldeth her husband. Then the curse of Allah upon one and upon the fools who lean against them, for so place the reins of conduct in their hands." So he put away his melancholy and regret and repine, and allayed his sorrow, constantly repeating those words, adding, "It is my conviction that no man in this world is safe from their malice." When supper time came, they brought in the trays, and he ate with voracious appetite, for he had long refrained from meat, feeling unable to touch any dish, however dainty. Then he returned, grateful thanks to Almighty Allah, praising him and blessing him, and he spent the most restful night, it having been long since he had savored the sweet food of sleep. Next day he broke his fast, and began to recover health and strength, presently regained excellent condition. His brother came back from the chase 10 days after, when he rode out to meet him, and they saluted each other. And when King Shahryar looked at King Shah Zaman, he saw how the hue of health had returned to him, how his face had waxed ruddy, and how he ate with an appetite after his late scanty diet. He wondered much, and said, "O my brother, I was so anxious that thou would join me in hunting and chasing, and would take thy pleasure, and pass time in my dominion." He thanked him, and excused himself. Then the two took horse, and rode into the city. When they were seated at the reece in the palace, the food trays were set before them, and they ate their sufficiency. After the meats were removed, and they had washed their hands, King Shahryar turned to his brother and said, "My mind is overcome with wonderment. Thy condition, I was desirous to carry thee with me to the chase, but I saw thee changed in hue, pale and warm to view, and in sore trouble of mind too. But now, Allen Delilah, glory be to God, I see thy natural color has returned to thy face, and that thou art again in the best of It was case. My belief that thy sickness came of thy family and friends, and absence from capital and country. So I refrain from troubling thee with further questions. But now I beseech thee to expound the cause of thy complaint, and thy change of color, and to explain the reason of thy recovery, and the return to the ruddy hue of health, which I am wont to view. So speak out, and hide no." When Shah Zaman heard this, he bowed groundwards a while. His head then raised it, and said, "I will tell thee what caused my complaint, and my loss of color, but excuse my acquainting the cause of its return to me, and the reason of my complete recovery. Indeed, I pray thee not to depress me for a reply," said to Shahryar, who was much surprised by these words. "Let me hear first what produced thy pallor and thy poor condition. Know then, or my brother, rejoined Shah Zaman, that when thou said this, I was here with the invitation to place myself between thy hands. I made ready and marched out to my city, but presently I minding left behind me in the palace a string of jewels as a gift to thee. I returned for it alone, and found my wife on my carpet bed, and in the arms of a hideous black cook. So I slew the twain, and came to yet my thoughts brooded over this business, and I lost my bloom, and became wicked. Excuse me if I still refuse to tell thee what was the reason of my complexion returning." Shahryar shook his head, marveling with extreme marvel, and with the fire of wrath flaming up from his heart. "Indeed, the malice of woman is mighty." Then he took refuge from them with Allah, and said, "Very so my brother, thou hast escaped many an evil by putting thy wife to death, and right excusable with thy wrath and grief for such mishap, which never yet befell crowned king like thee, by Allah. Had the case been mine, I would without slain 1,000 women, and that way madness lies. But now praise be to Allah, who have tempered thy tribulation and needs. Must thou acquaint me with that which so suddenly restored to the complexion and health, and explain to me what causes this concealment? O King of the age, again I praise the excuse by so doing, but thou must. I fear, my brother, lest the recital caused the more anger and sorrow than afflicted me, that were but a better reason, cause Shahryar, for telling me the whole history, and I come to thee by not to keep back court from me." Thereupon Shah Zaman told him all he had seen, from commencement to conclusion, ending with these words: "When I behold thy calamity and the treason of thy wife, brother, and I respected that thou art 10 years my senior, and in sovereignty my own sorrow was my superior by the comparison, and my mind recovered Toner's temper. So throwing off melancholy and despondency, I was able to eat and drink and sleep, and thus I speedily regained health and strength, such as the truth and the whole truth." When King Shahryar heard this, he waxed wrath with exceeding wrath, and rage was like to strangle him. But presently he recovered recovered himself, and said, my brother, I would not give thee the lion this matter, but I cannot credit it till I see it with my own eyes. And thou wouldst look upon thy calamity, cross Shah Zaman, rise at once, and make ready again for hunting and causing, and then hide thyself with me. So shall thou witness it, and thine eyes shall verify it true. Cause the king, whereupon he made proclamation of his intents to travel, and the troops and tents feared forth without the city, camping within sight. And Shahryar sallied out with them, and took seat amidmost, his host bidding the slaves admit no man to him. When night came on, he summoned his wazier, and said to him, Sitst thou in my stead, and let none till the term of 3 days. Then the brothers disguised themselves, and returned by night with all secrecy to the palace, where they passed the dark hours, and at dawn they seated themselves at the lattice overlooking the pleasure grounds, when presently the queen and her handmaids came as before, and passing under the windows made for the fountain. Here they stripped 10 of them, being men, and the king's wife cried out, Where are those? Said hideous, black, and more dropped from the tree straightway, and rushing into her arms without stay or delay, cried out, I am sad. Inside. The lady laughed heartily, and all fell to satisfying their lusts, and remained so occupied for a couple of hours, when the white slaves rose up from the handmaidens' breasts, and the black dismounted from the queen's bosom. Then they went into the basin, and after performing the goose or complete ablution, donned their dresses, and retired as they had done before. When King Shahryar saw this infamy of his wife and concubines, he became as one distraught, and he cried out, In utter solitude can man be safe from the doings of this vile world. By Allah, life is not but one great wrong. Presently he added, Do not thwart me and my brother in what I propose. And the other answered, I will not. So he said, It is up as we are, and depart forthright, for we have no concern with kingship, and let us over wander others, worshipping the Almighty, till we find someone to whom the like has happened. And if we find none, then will death be more welcome to us than life. So the 2 brothers issued from a second private postin of the palace, and they never stinted wayfaring by day and by night, until they reached the tree, a middle of a meadow, hard by a spring of sweet water, on the shore of the salt sea. Both drank of it, and sat down to take their rest. And when an hour of the day had gone by, lo, they heard a mighty roar, and uproar in the middle of the main, as though the heavens were falling upon the earth, and the sea brake with waves before them, and from its towered a black pillar, which grew and grew, till it rose skywards, and began making for that meadow. Seeing it, they waxed exceedingly, and climbed to the top of the tree, which was lofty, whence they gazed to see what might be the matter. And behold, it was a jinni, huge of height, and burly of breast and bulk, broad of brown, and black of bearing blue on his head a coffer of crystal. He stroked to land, wading through the deep, and coming to the tree, whereupon were the 2 kings, seated himself beneath it. He then set down the coffer on his bottom, and from out of it drew a casket with 7 padlocks of steel, which he unlocked with 7 keys of steel. He took from beneath his thigh, and after it a young lady was seen white-skinned, and of winsomest mien, of statue of fine, and thin and bright as the moon. Of the 14th night she had been, or of the sun raining lively sheen. Even so the poet Attire hath excellently said, She rose like the morn as she shines through the night, and she gilded the grove with her gracious sight. From her radiance the sun taketh increase when she unveileth, and shameth the moon shine bright. Bow down all beings between her hands, as she showeth charms with her veil undight, and she floodeth cities with torrents, tears when she flasheth her look of levy light. The Jenny seated her under the tree by his side, and looking at her said, All choice of this heart of mine, old dame of of noblest lion, whom I snatched away on thy bride night, that none may prevent me taking thy maidenhead, or tumble thee before I did, and whom none save myself hath loved or hath enjoyed. O my sweetheart, I would thee sleep a little while. He then laid his head upon the lady's thighs, and stretching out his legs, which extended down to the sea, slept and snored and sparked like the roll of thunder. Presently she raised her head toward the treetop, and saw the two kings perched near the summit. Then she softly lifted off her lap the genie's pin, which she was tired of supporting, and placed it upon the ground. Then standing upright under the tree, signed to the kings, "Come ye down, and fear not from this effort." They're in a terrible fright when they found that she had seen them, and answered her in the same manner, "Allah upon thee, and by their modesty excuse us from coming down." But she rejoined by saying, "Allah upon you both, that you come down forthright, and if you come not, I will rouse upon you as if red, and he shall do you to die by the illest of deaths." Then she continued making signals to them. So being afraid, they came down to her, and she rose before them and said, "Stroke me a strong stroke without stale delay. Otherwise will I arouse and set upon who shall slay you straightway." Then they said to her, "O our lady, we conjure thee by Allah, let us off this work, for we are fugitives from such, and in extreme dread and terror of this thy husband. How then can we do it in such a way as our desires? Leave this talk, its needs must be so," cost she, and she swore them by him who raised the skies on high without proper pillar, that if they worked not to her will, she would cause them to be slain and cast into the sea. Whereupon, out of fear, King Shahryar said to King Shah Ahmed, "O my brother, do thou what she bid." But he replied, "The do. I will not do it before I now." And they began disputing about fluttering her. "Then cost you to the twine. How is it I see you disputing and demurring? If you do not come forward like men, and do the deed of kind you too, I will arouse upon you the effort." At this, by reason of their sword red of the genie, both did by her what she bade them do. And when they had dispelled it from her, she said, "Well done." She then took from her pocket a purse, and drew out a knotted string, whereon was strung 570 seal rings, and asked, "Know ye what be these?" They answered her, saying, "We know not." Then quotes to you, "These be the signets of 570 men, who have all thuttered me upon the horns of this foul, this foolish, this filthy effort. So give me also your 2 sealings, you pair brothers." When they had drawn their 2 rings from their hands, and given them to her, she said to them, "Of a truth, this ifrit bore me off on my bright night, and put me into a casket, and set the casket in a coffer, and to the coffer he affixed 7 strong padlocks of steel, and deposited me on the deep bottom of the waves, dashing and clashing with waves, and guarded me so that I might remain chaste and honest author. None save himself might have connection with me, but I have laying under as many of my kind as I please. This wretched's jinny, what is not, that destiny may not be averted nor hindered by aught, and that whatso women willeth the same she fulfilleth. However, man and Lilith, even so saith one of them, rely not on women, trust not to their hearts, whose joys and whose sorrows are hung to their parts. Lying love they will swear thee when skyle near departs. Take Yusuf for sample wear slates and wear smarts. You bless ousted Adam, see ye not through their hearts. And another says, stint thy blame, man, to drive thee to a passion without bounds. My fault is not so heavy as faults in it has found. If true lover I become, then there cometh not, save what happened unto many in the bygone stand. For wonderful is he, and right worthy of our praise, who from wiles of female wits kept him safe and kept him them sound. Hearing these words, they marveled with exceeding marvel. And she went from them to the Ethrid, and taking up his head on her thighs, before I said to them softly, Now wind your ways, and bear yourselves beyond the bounds of his malice. So they feared for saying either to other Allah, Allah, and there be no majesty, and there be no might, saving Allah, the glorious, the great, and with him we seek refuge from women's malice and slight. For of a truth it has no mate in might, considering my brother the ways of this marvelous lady, with an effort, who is so much more powerful than we are. Now since there happens to him a greater mishap than that which befell us, and which should bear us abundant consolation, so return we to our countries and capitals, and let us decide never to intermarry with womankind, and presently we will show them what will be our action. Thereupon they rode back to the tents of King Shahryar, which they reached on the morning of the third day, and having mastered the wazirs and the chamberlains and high officials, he gave a robe of honor to his viceroy, and issued orders for an immediate return to the city. There he sat him upon his throne, and sending for the chief minister, the father of the two damsels, who inshallah will presently be mentioned, he said, I command thee to take my wife and smite her to death, for she has broken her plight and her faith. So he carried her to the place of execution, and did her die. Then King Shahryar took brand in hand, and repairing to the Seralia, slew all the concubines into their Mamelukes. He also sware himself by binding oath that whatever wife he married, he would have bade her maidenhead at night, and slay her next morning, to make sure of his honor. For said he, there never was, nor is there one chaste woman upon face of earth. Then Shah Zaman prayed for permission to fare homewards, and he went forth equipped and escorted, and traveled till he reached his own country. Meanwhile, Shahryar commanded his was here to bring him the bride of the night, that he might go into her. So he produced the most beautiful girl, the daughter of one of the emirs, and the king went in unto her at eventide. And when morning dawned, he bade his minister strike off her head, and the wazir did accordingly, for fear of the sultan. On this wise he continued for the space of 3 years, marrying a maiden every night, and killing her the next morning, till folk race and outcry against him, and cursed him, praying Allah astily to destroy him. And women made an uproar, and mothers wept, and parents fled with their daughters, till they remained not in the city, young person fit for carnal population. Presently the king ordered his chief wazir, the same who was charged with the execution, to bring him a virgin, as was his wont. And the minister went forth and searched and found none. So he returned home in sorrow and anxiety, fearing for his life from the king. Now he had 2 daughters, Shahrazad and Dunyazad hight, of whom the elder had perused the books, adults and legends of preceding kings, and the stories, examples, and instances of bygone man and things. Indeed, it was said that she had collected 1,000 books of histories relating to antique races and departed rulers. She had perused the works of the poets, and knew them by heart. She had studied philosophy and the sciences and accomplishments, and she was pleasant and polite, wise and witty, well-read and well-bred. Now on that day she said to her father, Why do I see thee thus changed and laden with cock and care? Concerning this matter quotes one of the poets, Tell who so has sorrow, grief never shall last, even as joy has no moral, so woe shall go past. When the wazir heard from his daughter these words, he related to her from first to last all that had happened between him and the king. Thereupon said she, My Allah, O my father, how long shall this slaughter of women endure? Shall I tell thee what is in my mind, in order to save both sides from destruction? Say honor my daughter Quathi and Quashi. I will wish thou would give me in marriage to this king, Shahryar. Either I shall live, or I shall be a ransom for the virgin daughters of Muslims, and the cause of their deliverance from his hands. And thine other pony cried here in wrath, exceeding that lacked no feeding. O scatty of wit, expose not thy life to such peril. How dare thou address me in words so wide, from wisdom and unfair from foolishness? Know that one who lacketh experience in worldly matters falleth into misfortune, and whoso considereth not keepeth not the world to friend. And the vulgar say I was lying at my knees. Not but my viciousness brought me unease. Needs must thou make me a doer of this good deed, and let him and he will. I shall only die a ransom for others. O my daughter, asked he, and how shall that profit be, when thou shalt have thrown away thy life? And she answered, O my father, it must become of it. What will that was here? Was again moved to fury, and blamed and reproached her, ending with, in very deed, fearless the same before thee, which befell the bullet the ass with the husbandman. And what ask shall we fell there? My father, whereupon the wazir began the tale of the bull and the ass. The end of section 1 in volume 1 of the book of the 1,000 Nights and a Night.